Okay, first of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sinu. I was at Perth Modern last year. I did both English and Lit. I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the marks more. I am now taking over English for your year. I'm sure that you had Rosie last year. If you did English, Rosie, yeah, Rosine, yes. I'll structure my lessons quite similar to hers. I know that she did half an hour every single week where you do your own classwork, is that right? Yes. Kind of. I'll do that just because I know the majority of your marks will come from your own text, and considering that most of you won't be in the same school, then I can't, cover all 40 texts if that's what you're doing. I'll just designate half an hour every single lesson for you to go and do your individual work. And this is essays for schools, preparing for a test, that kind of thing. And I'll come individually with you. Otherwise, we'll go over content and we'll go over maybe a comprehension every single week or something like that. We'll look at that a bit later. So yeah, I'm Sinu. This is my phone number. This is my email. Take it down if you'd like. And you can contact me, hopefully not the night before an exam or test, rather not have that happen. But if you have a very pressing question, text me. If you want me to read an essay, if you want me to read something, let me know. Soon people, there's a lot of people in English. Okay, so to the Zoom people who have joined, I'm Sinu. I'm your new English tutor. And another one. Okay. All right, so just to get a bit of an idea of the class, who here is from Perth Mod? Oh, okay, 3. And other schools, what are we looking at? So you 3 Perth Mod, I'll just go from table to table. So what school are you from?
Yes, I'm Colby.
Yes. You?
Randall.
Randall, yes. Shenton, yes. Shenton? Asher?
MLC.
MLC?
Yeah.
Hudale?
Shenton.
Shenton? Melville? Sorry? Oh, Woodvale, yep. Harrisdale? Mercedes. Rockingham? Sorry? Ashvale? Thanks, yeah. Shenton, and what school are you from? Mount Lawley. Okay, we've got an awful lot of Shenton kids in here. I'm not too sure about your course. My sister goes to Shenton, and that's about all I know about the school. Other schools, obviously I can't cover everyone's text, and if you've only got 3 Perth Mod kids, I can only account for knowing 3 of your guys' texts, maybe not even. So what I'd get you guys to do is probably, when you get your course outline, email me your course outline and email me the text that you're going to be doing, just so that I can get an idea of what text we're looking at. Even if it's a short story, if it's documentary, that kind of thing, just let me know so that I have an idea of what to do. Otherwise, we'll be focusing more on techniques in this class as opposed to text driven. We'll look at more how to write a good essay, how to look at comprehending and be able to do it, or how to do composing well. Yep, is that fine? Yep. Okay, so let's do a little bit of an introduction into literature. I'll just close that door. There's the SCARSA definition. Read through it. You don't really need to know it. It's just good to have a look at. All right, so viewing and listening, that's the 2 modes of what we'll be doing. We will have to look at purpose. We'll have to analyze. We'll have to look at conventions. We'll look at stylistic features. We'll look at genre, that kind of thing. And we'll also have a look at interpretive, persuasive, and analytical types of writing. Yeah. So how many people are year 11 here? Quite a few. Okay. So you guys will be joining English. You know the 3 types, comprehending, composing, and responding. Yes. Responding being the essay, comprehending being the 2 short answer texts, and composing being your story or your narrative or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. So from what I gather, most schools will start with comprehending. Is that right? Yeah. We'll start with comprehending. Yeah. So that's what we'll kind of do today. Let's just do a little bit of homekeeping. The course, you've got tests, exams, and you've got informal things. Informal things are your oral assessments, they're your speeches. Every school will do a speech, I'm assuming. Yes, yep. That's easy, super easy. Normally teachers will award marks to kids who are confident. If you're not a confident person, that's still okay. You can get marks in terms of your actual writing. So we'll have a look at informal things such as, I know Perth Mod, you'll have a conference, you'll have a response to a conference. My year, it was about the stolen generation. It was so easy to get 100% in that one. There wasn't even really a marking key. So informal tests are things that we can definitely hit the jackpot in terms of marks. Tests will be a bit harder. I kind of view them as trial exams. Use your tests as a way to find out what works for your exams. For year 12s, you've got 2 shots at this. So you've got 3 sets of exams. You've got Sem 1, mocks, and then WACE. Use your tests very, very wisely. Use your tests to anticipate your marks in your exam. So if you've got a text that you really, really like, let's say Shrek, for example, everyone knows what Shrek is. Let's say that's your essay text. Know it inside out, have a really good essay, trial it in a CAP or a test task, see how you go, get your feedback back from it, make it perfect, slot it into WACE. Super easy. So there's a lot of preparation in terms of how to prepare for English. It's very doable. Then you've got exams. They weigh the most, they require the most effort, but we'll do a bit more of exam prep. Just to get an idea of exam prep, who here, how do we study for exams really? What do we kind of do? Hands up, anyone? Yeah.
Usually I review my texts and see like if I know the context.
Yep.
Build that knowledge. Have a practice essay at them.
Yes.
Having those with Gaza lace.
Yeah, practice papers. Perfect.
And then I get my teacher to look at them to mark them.
Okay, perfect. And so what school did you go to again?
St. Andrew's School.
Okay. Anyone else do something similar? Practice exams. I understand that a lot of people in English do it to pass. I get that. If you're that type of person, that's totally fine. I also understand if you don't study, just a tiny bit of preparation is key. Do a lot of you memorize essays? That's what I did. It worked for me. If you memorize an essay, there's nothing wrong with that. I know teachers hate on it all this time, but it's something that I did and worked for me. Are there any memorizers here? Memorizing? Yep. Yeah, a few nods. That's good. Okay, other people just read their texts. Kind of just read the text again. Wing it. Yeah. You? Okay, that's all right. We'll figure out how to learn for exams later on. Getting to know you and your schools. Kind of already know what schools you come from. Course outlines, just send them to me along with the text that you're studying. Okay, so let's have a look at goals, strengths, and weaknesses, because obviously this is tutoring that your parents are paying for. We want to see an outcome. And considering we've now entered ATAR, we also want to get our, the best ATARs that we possibly can if we're coming to tutoring like this. If English is not going to be in your top 4, that's fine. Let me know. I'm not going to unnecessarily push you and do Shakespeare if you don't want to do Shakespeare. Do you know what I mean? So let me know. Otherwise, what are our weaknesses in terms of English? What do we kind of struggle with English? Is it more structure, like structuring an essay, the way you write, your expression, a certain course concepts? Anyone? Yeah.
For me, the way I write and the quantity I write.
Quantity.
Yeah.
So how much do you guys normally write in terms of an essay? A page? Sorry, who said that? Him back there. Okay. So about a page or 2. Okay. And anyone else longer? Sometimes people write too long of an essay. You? Oh, a question. Course concepts. Perfect. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Anything else? Okay. So I was a bit of an overwriter. I wrote like a lot of pages. So I can help you with getting your writing to a longer length, but also getting it to be a better quality. That's what we'll look at. So course concepts is something we'll look at. Was there a specific course concept in, that we want to look over? Was it representations? ideology, attitudes, values, and beliefs. Voice is quite an interesting one. Voice, yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
I think representation is good one, because I know like the teachers at Shenton Age, they love. really write
Yeah,
good things about
100%.
representation, so-
Yeah. Representations is a big one. I would say that, oh, that's all good. I'm not sure if there's many seats. You can either sit at the front if you want to. I'll make some space. Otherwise there should be chairs in the other room that you might want to steal. Maybe. Yeah, that's all good. That's fine. Okay. Does anyone have a certain part of the exam that they struggle with the most? Is it comprehending? Is it responding? Is it composing? Comprehending, hands up. This is like who finds it the most difficult. So comprehending, yeah, responding, yeah. And what about composing? Composing, yeah, perfect, yeah, okay. So we've got kind of an even amount here. What I would say is responding is the biggest amount of your marks. It's 40 marks. So I think we should focus on that, even if only just a few people want to go over that. We'll focus on that. We'll do a lot of comprehending because it is the only part of your exam that is unseen. So that comes with a bit of skill and practice for that. And if I force you to do it in tutoring, you'll end up doing it. So you're getting that practice in. Otherwise, in terms of goals, who here like wants an A? A? Who wants to pass? Who wants to go for excellence award? You can, yeah. Okay, so we've got an even amount of people who want an A, and that's good. I think that's really good. Does that mean we now know we want to hit over that 75 is an A for most schools, yeah? So we want to hit that 75 mark, which is definitely achievable. So now we've got our goals. That's all fine. The roll, how's the roll? Is that passed around somewhere? Floating somewhere? Yeah, that's all good. I'll go collect that. So what was your name? I'll just get you next week. Just pop it and send it to me. There's my email and my number over there. Yeah. Okay. So most schools start with comprehending. I know Perth Mod does, so I'm going to go off that since we have no course outlines yet. Let's have a look at that then. And people on Zoom should be fine. Okay. All right, comprehending. You only have 2 texts from, well, my year onwards now. No more 3 texts. You've got half an hour to do comprehending. That's a lot of time. Would not recommend you take the whole hour. Put it in something else. If you've got a very long essay, put it in your essay time. If you want to plan a lot for your composing, put it in composing time. So you've got extra time. Use it to your advantage now. It's a great thing, I think. So that's just kind of comprehending in a, you know, in a nutshell. It's just 2 texts, short answer. In terms of how much we write, how much do people write for a comprehending generally? Yes.
A paragraph or 2.
2 paragraphs is the right amount. Anyone else? About the same? Yeah, about the same. Okay, good. That's good. Okay, scales of definition. I always start with these. They're somewhat good to look at. You have 2 unseen texts. One is a written text always. We will need to know our language conventions. Written text will always have language shaped in a certain way for a certain purpose, for a certain audience. Purpose and audience are 2 concepts we need to know. So our written text, we will get down pat. The other text is either another written text, a visual text, or a multimodal. Multimodal meaning an ad or a cartoon that has both images and writing in it. Obviously, you can't have a movie for your exam, but it'll be something multimodal. So, main points about this section. What is the marker asking of you in this section? They want you to analyze and present a reading. What is a reading? Does anyone know? It's quite straightforward, yes.
Isn't it a bit like your opinion or like a critical reading about
Your critical analysis of a text, yeah. Critical is a good word. You have to be critically analytical when you're comprehending to a text. It can also just be your interpretation of a text. Certain texts can be interpreted very, very differently. And I'll go over that in a bit. The marker is also asking you to read and, if applicable, incorporate the contextual information given. There will always be context given for a comprehending, and it's very important to look at it. So, information such as the author, the title, the dates, they're almost mandatory to have. You've got to have them in your first sentence. Other contextual stuff like this man is writing about his mum who died 50 years ago. You don't need to write his mum died 15 years ago. You can just reference he's had a certain hardship in his life. And that means you've acknowledged that contextual information. Marker's also asking you to write legibly. Please write legibly. It's a massive thing. Markers will give you an extra mark, trust me, if you have very nice writing. So if you have bad writing, work on it, because if the marker can't read it, especially a waste marker, they're not going to read it. They're going to just give you 50 and they're going to go. They're generous if they're giving you 50. Do you know what I mean? So write legibly. That is what they are asking you of. Now, let's have a look at what presenting a reading kind of looks like. We've got 3 types of readings. This is not very critical knowledge. You can write notes about it if you'd like. If you want to write notes, write it about the dominant reading, because most of the time you'll find yourself doing a dominant reading. So there's 3 types: dominant readings, alternative readings, and resistant readings. There is a difference between the alternative and resistant. A dominant reading is where it's an interpretation that most people will give, given the same context that you are given. So this is normally because you're either from the same place, you're the same race, you're the same gender, or you grew up in the same country, that kind of thing. So you've got the same cultural knowledge and you've got pretty much the same belief system. For example, Little Red Riding Hood, we all know the story. The moral of the story, or the reading and interpretation of the story, is don't talk to strangers. That's the main reading, right? That's your dominant reading. When we're looking at an alternative reading, we're looking at someone who reads something, reads a text, but they pick a minor detail which to them is bigger than another person. So some people may focus on a minor aspect of the text the dominant reading briefly describes. So it could be a subplot or a specific character that the reader has taken into account to be a major thing of the text. For example, Little Red Riding Hood alternative reading can be that young women should stay obedient to parents and follow the right path. That is an alternative reading. Of course, it's about not talking to strangers, but another person can see that this is more a story about a girl following rules, and that she was meant to be following the rules and take the right path, and she didn't, and then she got, killed by the wolf or whatnot. A resistant reading is where the text reading is against the grain. So it's actually challenging the reader's moral and intent. So it will be, I'll keep on going with that Red Riding Hood thing. Red Riding Hood as a resistant reading can be seen as it's no one's fault. Wolves naturally eat humans. That's the way of the food chain. That's nature. That's a resistant reading, because that's missing what the author intended to look at. If we look at a play like Macbeth, which is a story about overambition by Shakespeare, the moral of the story was that if you're overambitious and if you're trying to gain too much and you're greedy in life, it'll be your own hubris and downfall. A resistant reading to that is that it was simply fate. He was meant to kill the king and die himself, and it's fate, which is another Shakespearean school of thought in his writing. So it can be read different ways, and it can be read resistantly, and that's your types of reading. So what I would say is focus on dominant readings, know your dominant reading, write it really well. That's how you get marks. Don't worry about thinking about a really cool idea or a really out there idea. Go with a dominant reading. It's super easy. It's staring right at you. Write it really, really well. Use good vocabulary. Write it with eloquence. Write it enough. So explain it enough. Explain your thought process enough, and it should be good, and you should get marks for that. Now, structure of a comprehending. How do we normally structure a comprehending? Let's go for a visual one. Anyone else besides you? How do we structure a comprehending? Anyone? I don't want to pick on people, please. Has anyone heard of Teal? Yep. Did you want to contribute? I mean, contribute now.
Alright, I was just raising my hand. Cool. Is it like topic sentence?
Yes.
Elaborate, evidence, and then elaborate, and then linking sentence.
And in your topic sentence, what are you kind of doing in your topic sentence?
I think it's like, it's a basic, it's a synopsis of one of your points that you made in the
Yes.
thesis.
Correct. It's a mini thesis. Yeah, no, you're right. It's a synopsis or a shorthand sentence of what your interpretation for that paragraph is going to be, your argument for that paragraph. And it's going to signpost a few things. Anyone heard of the word signposting? Yes, it'll become valuable in English. Structure for visual, actually no, that's a good, teal is good to start off with. Teal is simple, everyone kind of knows teal. So we've got, structure of comprehending, we've got teal. This is the way you structure the actual paragraph, the sentences in your paragraph. The way in which you structure the two paragraphs that you're using is going to be different, and I'll go through that. So there's a written structure and there's a visual structure. For written text, you can do it in a number of ways. You can have your first paragraph talking about symbolism and your second paragraph talking about language features. You can have the first paragraph talking about stylistic techniques and the second one about another stylistic technique, such as the first paragraph you talk about syntax in the text and the second paragraph you talk about imagery and the types of imagery in the text. The third layer is just ideas. This is my idea 1, this is my idea 2. Ideas, however, will have to be related to the question. Remember, you are answering a question. So if the question is asking you, how does language features in text 2 create different perspectives, you have to group it by perspective 1 and perspective 2 and have language features between them. So you also have to answer the question while you're doing it, but this is a rough kind of structure that I used for written texts. For visual text, it's a bit different. The general way that they frame it is paragraph 1 is symbolism, paragraph 2 is written codes. Written codes is writing, dialogue, anything, signs in the text, that kind of thing. The next one is symbolism, paragraph 1, composition, paragraph 2. Composition can be anything like scale, proximity, body language, clothing, facial expressions. That's all in the composition of the text. Symbolism is, you've got an angel in the corner of the page, or you've got a tree that symbolizes life or something like that. So that's symbolism. The other layer is just idea 1, idea 2. You can do that for visual text as well. If people are writing that, just let me know when you are done. Okay. And soon, people, you should be able to see that. Okay. Is that looking fine? Does anyone not get what I'm saying or needs me to clarify something? Okay, everyone done? Yeah. Okay. So, general structure, teal. Topic sentence, explain. That's optional. You can explain a little bit before you introduce evidence just to make flow better, but if you want to get straight to the point, go straight with evidence. Topic sentence, explain, evidence, explain again, then do that twice for your quotes. So there should be at least, at the very, 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 very least, 2 quotes per paragraph. So you need to do that evidence, explain twice. Then you've got your link, and I've got a little chart here. I've got a little chart here about what this means and kind of buzzwords or phrases to start those certain sentences and parts of your English comprehending. Okay. I would say stray away from saying this is, if this is a very, like the word this is a very vague word. English teachers tend to like you to specify what this is. So say maybe like the lighting does this, or the lighting highlights this, instead of saying this is. Do you know what I mean? So that table is not perfect, but can do. That's all fine. Yes.
If you have like context, would you add that after the topic sentence or after your evidence?
So add that in your topic sentence. When I did English comprehending, I used to overwrite a little bit. So I would do, my thesis sentence would be 2 sentences. So I'd start with a generic statement that had half of my thesis in it, then full stop, half of my thesis in the next sentence, and contextual information in the other half of that sentence. So 2 sentences would be my topic sentence. And then I would go explain it out a little bit, evidence explain, link. Also remember, actually no, that's fine. Everyone good with that? Yeah. Yes.
For quotes, how do you know if you're overwriting the quote? Like, how do you?
Don't use whole sentences for quotes. Okay, you can use long quotes, don't overuse them though. You can have 1 long quote in your text, in your answer maximum. Don't have like all your quotes be 4 lines long. That's not good. Quotes can be 5 words long. My quotes for waste were all like 2 words long, 3 words long. But they were plentiful. I would have about 5 or 6 quotes per paragraph, just because they would be so short and they would add emphasis to what my argument was. So keep that in mind. You can have 5 to 6 small short quotes, or you can have 2 big long quotes, flesh it out, but not too big, because it becomes clunky for readers. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I kind of used for year 12. Year 11s. Sorry, how many year 11s do we have in the class again? Hands up. Year 11s, you can use this structure if you'd like. It's great to start early with these kind of things. It'll allow you to practice. So the way I would do it is body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2. Body paragraph 1, I'd start by introducing the essential information and a general statement. This would be things such as the author's name, publication date, year, genre, title. That can all be written in less than half a sentence, a quarter of a sentence. You could be like, Cummings' 1956 postmodernist play Thanksgiving. That's nothing. That's just the start of your topic sentence. So I'd introduce essential information and a general statement. Then I would do a tiny synopsis at the end of that statement. So I'll be like, Cummings' play explores the hypocrisy of the American state via blah, blah, blah. Finish sentence. Now I do my topic sentence. So with that first body paragraph, you want to have a kind of introductory sentence before your topic sentence, just so that you're introducing the text to the marker, so that they know you're acknowledging contextual information. They know you're acknowledging that this is written by someone and it has a title and has a year and a genre. So I'd have an introductory statement. That's all homekeeping stuff and a synopsis. Then I go in with my topic sentence. Topic sentence can be Cummings' use of imagery or like vivid visual imagery and manipulation upon syntax allows authors to perceive nature as both beautiful and destructive. Something like that. So I've highlighted my conventions, and I've highlighted it can be seen as beautiful and it can be seen as destructive. So my 2 points. I'll go over topic sentences a bit more. I'm just skimming over that just for an example. Then I'll just go with my normal teal structure, explain a bit, evidence, explain, link. Body paragraph 2, don't bother reintroducing the text. You've done it already in the first body paragraph. Just go in with teal. Yep. And the way you can start that second body paragraph is something like, despite Cummings conceiving nature to be beautiful, the text also explores its destructive capabilities. That is a bit of an introductory statement to that second body paragraph, and then go through allusion, this is crafted, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. So give it a bit of flow. Remember that there's an actual human reading your work. It's not a computer. So you want to make it sound a little bit nice and a bit flowy. So it sounds like you're actually thinking while you're writing. You're not just blurting out random stuff. Okay. This is an example that I did in year 11. I'll get you to have a look at it. I'll give you about 10 minutes. The question was, discuss how one or more perspectives have been created through composition in text 2. This was, I think, my Sem 1 exams, year 12. And that's a lie. I think it was Sem 2, year 11. So have a look at it. I'll give you a few minutes to see what you interpret from the text. Did you want this printed out? I'm going to send this PowerPoint all to you so you can have a look at it at home. But if you want anything printed out, let me know. Oh, you can see that. Oops. Oh, I forgot to give you context. This is an Australia Day protest. Australia Day just passed. This is an Australia Day protest. This is held in about the 1990s. It's in Sydney, obviously, and I think the rest is quite self-explanatory. Okay, I hope that everyone has looked at that a little bit. First of all, what are we seeing here? Kind of thing, yeah. The foreground was Aboriginal flags. Yeah, perfect. Correct terminology. I like the meta language. So we've got the foreground has Aboriginal flags, and what about the background?
It looks almost like the ships that we like fleet ships.
Yeah, colonial ships. Yeah.
Or what's symbolizing that maybe that should be left in the past.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that maybe Australia Day should not be celebrated as it is celebration.
Ships be left in the past. So I think with that kind of analysis, we could definitely pair it to be like symbolic placing, symbolic proxemics. Okay. What else are we seeing? Yep.
I feel like two kind of perspectives, like Indigenous Australian protesters and the government perspective. Like authority.
I would stray away from saying government just because there are Indigenous people in government, some of which who don't believe in Australia Day, some of which who do. So I would probably just say more, yeah, figures of authority. Okay, yeah, it's good to share.
Contrast.
Sorry,
Contrast.
contrast. What contrasting between?
So you have the kind of bright Aboriginal flag, and then you have the grave, very de-individualized background. And which feel like represent how the colonization of Australia like resulted in the de-individualization of the landscape.
Use the word de-individualization.
Oh, de-individualization.
And colonialism as byproduct of that,
Yeah.
or the cause of that, sorry.
Yes.
Anything else that we're looking at and seeing here? Yeah,
The clothes, like white,
sorry,
like the white clothes and then clustered in a group.
group, yes. So the protesters are all in a group. So protesters being in a group, looking into it a bit deeper, what does that kind of signify to you?
Unity.
Yes, unity, that's a great word, unity. So unity, togetherness, being empowered. So that composition at the forefront, we see all the protesters together on one boat. So that I would put in to composition. And I'll make it symbolic composition. Or you could even do it as salience, because if all people are just scattered around, they're kind of lost in the frame. But if they're all together in one group, they gain salience within the image. So salience is a good word. Salience of their unity. So, yeah, anything else to add? Nothing.
It's bad about the point about the past, the colonial ships. It's more like it's wanting those people, like as a,
Like remembrance.
yeah,
It's there to remind us of our past.
yes. And like they don't see their perspective of what they've gone through, their trauma. They only see it through.
What about the Sydney Harbour Bridge and Opera House? Who built that? Did Indigenous people build that?
No.
Did Indigenous people build a city?
No.
No. So all these types of things, this room, the roads, the city, it was built by white colonial people. So they're actually symbols, and a lot of the time, like when we look around the city, we just think the city. It's not colonialism. We don't think about that. But when we look at English text, when we look at especially grey, big, tall buildings, we think of them as colonial symbols because they're things that were impressed upon the earth. So when Indigenous people were here, it was natural earth. It was beautiful. It was the wide, vast Australia. It had nothing there besides very traditional nomadic houses. When the colonial fleet came in, they fully revolutionized the thing, and we see, you know, big cities, big buildings, that kind of thing. So those become very symbolic of colonialism. They become colonial symbols. Yeah.
Could you say like the positioning relative to the flags to like mean something?
So yeah, so they're basically kind of fighting for each other, fighting for salience in the image. So the Opera House is massive, but the flags, there's so many of them, that's repetition, so many of them, and they're at the front of the image. So they're fighting for space. It's almost like the colonial past is fighting with the Indigenous future in the image kind of thing. So I know it's like you're taking it too deep or like looking at it too deeply, but that's literally English. Just overanalyze everything. So that's what I would say. And I would talk about colonial propaganda. There's another word for this. Yeah, just symbols. It'll come to me later. Colonial symbols in the text. They're quite plastered all over the background, then the periphery of the image. So let's have a look at perspectives. We've done the hard work. We've listed what we see in the image, the conventions we see in the image. What do we kind of get as a perspective, a definitive perspective? Because remember, we're answering the question, how are one or more perspectives created in this text? Yeah.
So the perspective of the voice.
So I would stray away from saying it has an Aboriginal perspective, just because it sounds a bit off. I would say it has a bit more of, well, this is what I wrote. This is my interpretation. A hopeful perspective, because you've got a protest, you've got Indigenous flags. It's somewhat peaceful. It's going across the harbour bridge, which is a colonial symbol. It's empowering. I think it's a hopeful perspective. So a hopeful perspective. Or I'll write down, I won't write original, I'll write Indigenous perspective.
What isn't perspective like the voice?
Voice is different to perspective. Perspective is the way in which you look at things. Voice is the voice that is kind of used to deliver the way that they look at those things. So you can have a mournful, so an Indigenous person, for example, which is looked at a lot in English, their perspective to certain things will be different from yours and mine. Their voice will also be different to yours and mine. So voice and there's a fine line between voice and perspective. I'll get a definition for you, but they're definitely different. I'll just get more perspectives thrown around the class. I'm sorry, you had your hand up earlier.
I'm not sure.
That's okay.
Perspective that Australia Day should be celebrated.
Yes, so maybe so we need to attach a word to that. So maybe like a word. No, banning perspective, more of a distasteful perspective towards Australia Day, or
Resentment?
resentful. Yeah, resentful. That's a great word. Yeah, just shout out words if I'm lost for one, to shout one out. Resentful perspective. I will just type this down. Okay. Yeah. What other perspectives can we kind of see? So you talked about unity before. Do you think that there's a unified perspective in this image?
The protesters, why we remember Australia, what it should be.
Yeah. Anything else? Reminiscent perspective? Anything else?
We're looking at both sides, right? The protesters and the colonial this.
Yeah, white shaded boats.
Why, so like their perspective, like the authoritative, powerful.
I would say that this image doesn't cater a lot for that perspective. So I would say, if you think about it, the perspective is either the way you're looking at, so, okay, this is hard to explain. Perspective is the way you look at certain things. So a cop might look at a situation, a white cop might look at a situation very differently to a black cop. It's a different perspective. When we talk about perspectives in English, we talk about the way in which, like, we as readers look at this, the image presented to us. Do we see something that has a very solemn perspective towards a divorce? Or do we see something that has a very aggressive perspective towards truancy? It has to be a type of perspective. So we can't just say like it's a white man's perspective, because between different white men, it's going to be different perspectives. So we have to be a bit more niche with the thing that we're talking about. We have to label it a bit better. So a unified perspective, we have evidence in the text that this is showing unity. We have evidence in the composition, the symbolic composition, the protesters on the boat. Remember, we also have to link our perspectives to the evidence that we have. So we had that evidence. We can easily say there's a unified perspective. We have evidence of flags, which are a symbol of empowerment. We have evidence now of a hopeful perspective. So we need to link it. Do you get what I mean? Other people talked about colonialism versus, you know, a woke kind of future, all in one image. What does that kind of create, do you think? Having both conservative and liberal perspectives in one. Conflict, divide, maybe? A divided perspective? Okay, we've got a few here. I would say that these four are your best ones. You can go with them. If you have other ideas, write them down. Otherwise, I will get you to plan something. Plan what you would write for one paragraph, just one. So you can pick a perspective from here, or you can pick your own perspective. I don't need full sentences. I don't need a topic sentence written down. I need dot points. That's it. So just write what quotes you'd use, what evidence you'd use, what conventions linked to it, and what your perspective is. Yeah, I'll give you about 5 minutes and we can read my own answer. I will also say, guys, that this PowerPoint, it's about comprehending, but I will teach you a bit more about what comprehending looks like. This is just kind of a general look at it, structure, topic sentence format, that kind of thing. Yeah. Also, just remember and keep in mind that the time period that this was done in, this was not, you know, 2023 or 2024 rather, where everyone has kind of realized that maybe celebrating Australia Day is not a great thing. So just think about the time period and how people reacted to Australia Day and Indigenous peoples as well, and what the views on that was and how that affects the photo.
Context.
Yeah, contextual information. So in like a WASTE exam, they would give you a year that this was taken. you just use that year. So be like, given that it was in this period where Australia probably most likely held a more conservative opinion upon such woke culture, this kind of image is quite self-explanatory then. Anyone have a pen that I could use, please? Anyone? It's just right to me. Does anyone else have the role, the proper one? Yes, no? Oh, yeah, it's right in front of me, sorry. All right, plans. What do people get? I'd like a little bit of sharing, at least 2 people just to share their plan, just for that first body paragraph. Anyone? No? Yes, okay, yeah, you.
So.
I'll write it down so everyone can have a look at what each other is doing. In one paragraph.
Perspectives discussed in this text are the unified perspective about the divided perspective.
Okay, and what evidence did you have for unified?
Unified, I have the salience and
The salience and composition of the people?
yeah. Like the repetition.
Right, repetition. Spell repetition again.
And then the divided one, I had the colonial symbols such as the ships, the natural, like seawater, and logistics.
Okay. That's a good plan. I think you've got great evidence to back up your plan. What I would suggest with this one, however, is split these up. 1 paragraph on unified, 1 paragraph on divided, because right now you don't really know. Do you have an idea of what your your second paragraph would be? It'll be split up like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's the intro, like the thing.
Oh, okay. I get it.
And it's created through this for unified and this for divided. And then
So this is basically paragraph 1. And this is paragraph 2. Okay, that's good. That's exactly how I did it when I answered my question. Perfect. Anyone else to share? Anything? Yep.
So I had a virtual perspective, so, we did like, I don't know, like similar to those competition that, I did like the people on the boats, like the floating, it symbolizes the survival of culture and how.
Yeah. Protesters on boat. So that's a great symbolism point there.
Because they're like, I don't know. the-
Symbolism afloat. So the survival of Indigenous culture.
Yeah.
It's a great point. Oh, you just trying to pass English. You do well. Anything else? Any other evidence that we've got there?
I thought like how you've got all the people in the foreground and then they're moving forward, kind of like forward thinking, more progressive kind of, I don't know if they're wrong with that, but
Yeah, moving forward, it shows a hopeful future.
yeah.
Yeah, hopeful. Okay, people on Zoom, I'll just like type this all up and send it on the chat since you can't see the whiteboard, but that will be sorted. Everything else, is that, yeah, resentful, yep. There's not much space on here. Does everyone have my number? Okay. Paragraph 1, resentful. What was your evidence for that? Yeah, foreground to background.
I live there as a single. Like, the people that born in that stuff,
Yeah, so basically
yes, that.
your ID up there.
And then it's suggesting that this one has no back entry left in the past, like no.
Yeah, that's in the past. Perfect. Yeah, definitely. That's great evidence. Do we have anything else?
Then the original between the organs, yes, and that they should be, like, Australization is how they're doing this, another thing.
Yeah, so we'll have like your evidence for colonialism and then your evidence for indigenous. Perfect. That's great. I think that's good ideas that are jumping around the room. If you had anything, you can write those down if you'd like. If you want to take like one part of one of the girls' ideas, you can, or another part of another person's idea, you can do that. Otherwise, that is all good. I'll get you guys to read my response. So I did my first paragraph on a hopeful perspective. Oh, deconstructing the question. We need to do that. Sorry, I should have done that. Deconstructing the question is the first thing you should do in a comprehending exam. First thing you need to do is underline criteria that you cannot miss. So you cannot avoid doing this. So one or more perspectives, you have to do a perspective at least. That is criteria that you can't avoid. So you have to do it, underline it. Perspectives is your course concept. Highlight it, squiggle line under it. I don't know, whatever you want to do, box it, whatever. Perspectives is your one course concept. In this text, in this question, however, it does actually specify that has to be through composition only. Most of you with your plans there talked about pretty much only composition. Obviously, the composition is symbolic, so you can put in some symbolism into that. But then only composition is another technical thing that you have to highlight because that's the only thing you can talk about. So you can't talk about a distinct facial expression or a written text. You have to talk about that composition. Okay. This was my paragraph for a hopeful perspective. I'll move this out the side. I've kind of highlighted what I've done. This is year 11. Like, by the way, this is not year 12 stuff. This is what I did in year 11. So it's not as good as year 12 work for year 12 students here. But year 11s, here's an idea of kind of what to be looking at when you're doing a responding. So this is one I did in class. I typed it up. I don't even know if there's typos here, but read through it, and I've highlighted the certain parts and different parts of it. Is there anyone who can't see? Can you see that? Yeah, all good. Okay, I'll send this PowerPoint so you can have a look at it later. The repetitive use, sorry. So not very many sentences in this one. It's quite a short and simple one. It's not something that is overly long. You can fit this quite easily in, a small paragraph. So I'd say with this paragraph and with the other one, 100% you can do that in 15 minutes. That kind of thing. We're looking towards doing that. So this, obviously, there's a few typos. Some of the expression is not that great. So there's certain things, obviously, to have a look at and to improve in this text, even though, like it's mine, I still think there's stuff to improve with this response. But it's just an idea of how our structure works, how I introduce the topic sentence, how you explain a little bit and then evidence and then explain evidence and then linking it back to that topic sentence. Is that fine? Yep. Now what I'll do is I won't actually get you to plan another perspective in this text. We've already been through it. I'll just get you to read my other one. Here's the divided perspective. It's same thing. And I'll send all of these PowerPoints to you on Digify. So they will be there.
We have that English, did you find it?
Should be, I think so.
English being-
Did you have Rosie last time?
Yeah,
Rosie?
she sent us the link.
Oh, okay. I'll find out with Kunj. He said I'll do a Digify, but I don't know if that's just for lit or for both. Anyone here doing English and lit? No? Okay. Okay. Has everyone kind of gotten the gist of it? That example response. Perfect. Okay. Let's have a look at some analysis. How to do nice analysis. I know we've got about 20 more minutes to go. Hang in there. I won't make you do any more work. Just listen and try to absorb as much as you can. I'll send these PowerPoints. You can refer to them. Just sit and listen. So for analysis, we're looking at things such as conventions. Know your conventions, please, 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 please. It looks very impressive to an English marker when they know and can see, when they see that you know your conventions. Also learn meta language. Imagery, for example, imagery is everywhere. Okay, there's literally imagery in every single sentence an author writes because it has to describe what's happening. The imagery that they will use in certain texts, you have to specify, if you're using it as a quote, you have to specify what imagery it is. So there's 5 types of imagery. Can anyone name some? Yell them out.
Auditory,
Auditory. What is that?
what you hear.
Here. Olfactory. Visual as well.
Sensory.
Sensory. Olfactory is
Smell.
smell, visual, see, sensory. That's also textile. You can also go textile imagery. Last one. Starts with a G. It's taste, yes.
Gustatory.
Yes, gustatory. Gustatory. Yes. So it is not tasty, but it is about what you taste. It is gustatory imagery. There's also some funny thing that our class, last class last year came up with. A group of absolute delinquents would always just talk about texture. It's not a convention. Don't write texture. They would always talk about texture. It would drive the teacher mad. But there is an actual proper word for it. There is I don't know the word. It'll come to me later. So know your conventions. I will give you a SCASA list. I'll give you the resources. Don't memorize every single convention, but know the important ones. Now, more conventions. These are language features. These are like your syntax, your tone, your plot, your characterization, those kind of things, your metaphor, simile, that kind of stuff. If anyone has trouble with conventions, just pop me an email with the conventions that you want me to define, and I'll define them for you. Otherwise, you can just go look it up. So it's fine. Okay. Everyone on Zoom is good. Okay, analyzing well. There are 5 things that you should probably know how to when you're analyzing something. There's 2 parts to analyzing: picking the quotes and your evidence, then explaining those quotes. You cannot just say, you cannot just put in a quote, the man was hungry, and then say, therefore he was black. Okay, you can't say that. All right, you have to explain it. You have to fully explain your thought process as to why they think a certain way. Okay, you can't, you can't just put in a quote and just come to the conclusion that they were a happy person just from the quote. You need to fully explain it. Yeah. So when analyzing well, have short, impactful, and multiple quotes, or for a visual text, pieces of evidence. Yep. So sometimes a quote can only be 5 words or so. In my literature exam, I had a quote that was literally 2 words. That was my quote. Obviously, I had multiple quotes, but it helped me bolster what I was trying to prove in that set paragraph. Next thing is integrate these points of evidence or quotes seamlessly. Don't say the author says, and then insert quote. Say something that's nice. Put it in gently to your reader. So don't say in the text, the author quotes, blah, blah, blah. Say the author curates intrigue in a strategic way by describing the trees to be, and then quote, quote, quote. Do you get what I mean? Then attach conventions of language to these quotes. Don't just drop a quote. Say the metaphor in something. You know, label what your convention is. Then attach meta language. So you can say the visceral metaphor, or the intriguing metaphor, or the, you know, rude metaphor, something like that, or ironic metaphor, something like that. You have to attach meta language to your conventions. It's just like imagery. You can't just say imagery, you have to say auditory imagery. This is meta language. Yeah. Then explain and unpack those pieces of evidence. So you cannot just leave a quote to itself. You need to show and explain to the reader why you chose that quote, what it means. So I think I have an example. This was another comprehending that I think I did in year 11 as well. Let's have a look at, so just look at that second paragraph. When we're looking at it, we have quote integration in blue, attaching conventions and meta language in pink, and explaining and unpacking in orange. So a reminiscent voice is constructed lyrically within the start of the extract as the persona opens the piece, stating that in the village they were born in, Italian was in the air, and the language went in through your soft baby skin and would come out your mouth one day too. So like you can't see where the quote was inserted if you were just reading it, but when you're looking at it, I've inserted it in a way that it just flows. So in the village they were born in, Italian was in the air. That part where I say Italian is where the quote starts. Yeah. Then I go on to say the past tense nature of this anecdote creates a reminiscent voice of the piece that the author quite literally reflects upon the Italian language, intrinsically infusing into their identity. So that pink bit is my conventions. They're my meta language. Past tense, it's a convention kind of. Voice convention. Reminiscent voice, the word reminiscent, that is my meta language. I'm describing what type of voice there is. Everything has a voice. It can be a mournful voice. It can be a depressed voice, but I'm saying reminiscent. Yeah. Then I go on to explain what this does in the text. It's showing us that the author is reflecting upon their identity. Then I go in and insert another quote. Literary wise, the personification of the Italian culture coming in through your soft baby skin mobilizes this reminiscent voice to have a romanticizing effect. The sibilance and fantastical imagery being your conventions, of the Italian language seeping into soft baby skin becomes romantic experiences the author inherently had and treasures as to speak of the language so fondly. So I'm explaining as I'm going. This reminiscent voice of the text developed via anecdotes as such hence imposes a romanticizing effect on the extract, as Italian heritage is illustrated within language to sound both and to be read as once nurturing and so alive that the persona itself humanizes it. This kind of, you haven't read the text obviously, but this is just an example of quote integration and analysis. So I'm not sure what I did well in this one, I think, so that's why I used it. But that quote analysis was seamless. Yeah, so that's what we're kind of aiming for. Now, last of all, in the last 15 minutes, other concepts of comprehension that you have to address. There are 3 things: audience, purpose, and style. Have we heard of those words before? Yes, I'm sure teachers have spoken a lot about this. Audience. Who is this text directed to? Cummings, who is a postmodernist poet from ages ago, did not anticipate that you and I would be reading his work today. His audience was 1956 people, not 2024 people. Yeah. So the audience is always, the work is always targeted to the audience. And that audience will always have different views dependent on the context. So do you see how context and audience work very closely together? A migrant audience, so South Africa, where I'm from, will be a very different audience to an Australian audience. Very different in its attitudes, its values, its beliefs. And therefore the text coming out of South Africa will be very different to the text coming out of Australia. Yep. So when you're thinking about audience, think about your own backgrounds. Who are you as a responder to this text? What is your background? Are you a male? Is this a male audience? Is this a female audience? Is this a teenage audience? An Australian audience? Is this specifically catered towards migrant Australians? So look at your different backgrounds and think about how those fit into the different texts that you use. I will also be mindful that when you're looking at audience and you want to talk about yourself, you can use I only if the question asks you to. How does this text make you respond to a certain issue? It's asking for you and your response, so then you can say I. Otherwise, don't say I. It's too informal. Yep. Okay. So the audience the author knows will view their text will inform how the author will deliver it. So the language that they use. For example, a political cartoon's audience is going to be voters. Therefore, the language will be short, sharp, concise, so getting their attention, but it'll also be mocking. It'll be trying to sway your political opinions. So, purpose. Let's have a look at that. Purpose is why the author created this text and what the author intends for you to do after reading their text. Do they intend for you to feel a certain way, or do they intend for you to have a certain reaction? For example, a persuasive text may have the purpose of a call to action. An opinion piece might have the purpose of you boycotting a product. A speech may have a purpose of you voting for them. A poster might have a purpose for advertising a movie for you to see the movie. Different texts, different purposes. Yeah, get that? Okay, and last one, style. Style's not too important. It's basically articles, it's just the different types of things, text that you'll see. You might have a multimodal text, you might have a novella, a biography, a cartoon, whatever it may be. We will go over style a bit more because there will be stylistic features, and that's a course concept. Whoever said we should go over course concepts, I think that was you maybe. When going over course concepts, stylistic features will be a big one because your stylistic features will be different compared to the style of the text you're looking at. So a persuasive text will have different conventions like rhetorical questions or statistics as compared to a narrative that might just have plot character as their stylistic techniques. Yep. Okay. I would say that I have written this down as additional concepts. Be mindful that these are not just additional concepts, they can be framed as a whole question. In Waste, there was a question where how does text 1 utilize style and stylistic conventions for a certain purpose? So those two additional concepts became a whole question for a whole exam. So be mindful of these concepts, they will come up. Otherwise, we are done with content. I know it was a lot. We have another 8 minutes until class ends. There is really not much else I have to do or say, rather than just kind of feedback as to how I teach what you want to see in the future. Do you just, I know when you're in year 11 and 12, you just want to get marks. You don't really care how you get it. You just want to get the marks. Is it more of a thing where you give me a text from one of your schools and I go over it in the class every week for half an hour? Or do you want to do like a paragraph of an essay of a text that we study by ourselves that's on the waste list or something like that? I can accommodate whatever you'd like. You just have to kind of let me know. Is there anything in particular that you guys kind of want or need? Any school texts that you guys know you're going to be doing? Yeah.
Sharpnet, My Hiroshima.
Okay.
What is it, the African American?
Sorry? Oh, okay. I'm not too sure about those ones. I will have to type out all of this stuff for Zoom people. Okay, Fahrenheit 451. Okay, I can go over that. I'll have a look at that. I would just get you to let me know if that is a. Yeah, that's actually fine. Okay, so if you guys have anything else, just contact me. I'm sure most of you will have my number and my email, so let me know. Otherwise, guess we have a bit of time. In the last 5 minutes, I would kind of show you what I had for my WACE exam. So this was my image for the WACE exam for my responding. It is a very odd image. I don't know how to make that bigger. Am I sharing this? Yeah, it's Pinocchio. It's a pastiche. So you're taking a old text and you're making it new, a new text, or you're changing it in certain ways. So the question to this one was analyze how the image below uses conventions of its genre to achieve a purpose. So this was a movie poster, and what purpose do you kind of think a movie poster has? Yes, advertising you to go watch it. And how do you advertise someone to watch something, or how do you get their attention? Images, interesting images, unique kind of designs, something that people haven't seen before. So that's purpose as a question, and that was in my WACE exam. Another text that was in my mocks exam was this one. It is one taken by SBS, I think, possibly. And it is in a refugee camp. Or no, this is in a bombed home shelter. So the image was taken by a refugee camp, sorry. Yes?
These are in colour.
No, they are not in colour. That is because a person who was colorblind a few years ago sued WACE, said that having an image that had color in it put them at an unfair advantage because it limited the scope of conventions that they could use to analyze it, because color obviously has annotations to it and connotations to it. So it will always be in black and white. In your school exams, it will be the same. It will never be in color. The only thing that will be in color is your school logo. That's it. Everything else is black and white. Also, write in a black pen. Don't write in an erasable pen. So just quick tips for you not to bomb your exams. Otherwise, I won't give you any homework. I think that's unfair for the first week. So I will just let you guys pack up, I guess. We do finish at 3:30, right? Yeah. Here you go.
Oh, cheers, thank you.
Okay, people on Zoom. What I will do is I will have a document. Okay, I'll just type this all out. No worries.
Yeah, it's like.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear my clothes in the arm.
Thank you.
No worries. Hi.
So, in my, school, it usually, has like responding tasks to do, so like, if I email you for what I write.
Yes.
So,
Yes, yeah, no worries. I can do that for you. Just do you have my email? Yep, that's all good. No worries, bye. Okay, people on Zoom, I hope you got that message. I will type everything up. Digify should be up and running very soon, and all the resources will be on that, my PowerPoints, etc. So, otherwise, that is all good. I will see you next week then. Bye.